Welcome all, and let's together explore the subject of salt. I must tell you, one of the most difficult things about the shir is choosing a topic for discussion. So I was driving on the highway. It was yesterday morning, and there was this truck that I passed. It was driving quite slow in the terrible storm, and it had big letters. It says, "Please pass the salt." And I was in my mind thinking about salt and the parsha, and this kind of triggered today's discussion. Let's just get the laser. So if you drive south on Route 90, that's the route that leads you to Eilat. Somewhere along the line, you're going to come across this sign that points to Eshet Lot, or Lot's wife. And you can see here where it's situated. It's kind of, this is Route 90 that is going down, and eventually ends up in Eilat. It, joins up there with the Jerusalem route going to Jericho. And here's Ein Gedi, Masada is somewhere here. Here's Ein Bokek and all those smart Dead Sea hotels. And then there is a spot referred to as Lot's wife because of this protrusion of salt that kind of stands out on what is called Mount Sodom. And that is said to be the pillar of salt that is the wife of Lot, who I believe actually does have a name Iris. And as we know, she was turned into a pillar of salt when Lot and family were escaping from the destruction of Sodom, of Amorah. And Lot's wife turned around, and she was turned into a pillar of salt. So, we need to understand really what that is all about. So what do we know about Lot's wife, and why did this happen to her? A peculiar punishment. Here's Rashi discussing this verse, and he quotes Medrash Rabbah, Bereshit Rabbah, chapter 50, and says this becoming a pillar of salt was because she had sinned by salt, and so she's being punished by salt. It's called midah keneged midah, measure for measure. As we know, angels come to visit Lot. Lot offers him hospitality. Lot is married to a woman who is actually from Sodom, and she's not comfortable with this hospitality. And so imagine they're sitting around the dinner table, and Lot says, "Please pass the salt." And she says, "Do you want to introduce this bad custom into our city?" With that, the Medrash continues that she said, "But we don't have salt at home, but let me go and borrow some." And she goes around the neighborhood saying to all her neighbors, "Hey, can you lend me some salt? My husband's got visitors." And that is not a very good idea, as we'll see. You see, what happened in Sodom? And why was Sodom destroyed? So we piece it together. The Torah just tells us that the people of Sodom were evil people, they were wicked people, they were chataim me'od, they were bad people. But if you look at the commentary, if you look at the Midrashim, if you look in Rashi, Sodom was actually a very, very wealthy area. It was a very fertile part of the Middle East. The Torah describes the valley of the Jordan as similar to the Nile Delta. It talks about it was Kagan, Keretz Mitzrayim, Kagan Hashem. It was a well irrigated, extremely fertile, extremely wealthy area. And the people of Sodom and the neighboring towns, they felt that they wanted to keep the wealth for themselves. It was capitalism to the extreme, and capitalism gone completely wrong, where they felt that if they were blessed with wealth, it was for them and it was not to share, because if you start sharing your wealth, then you diminish your wealth, is their mentality. So in order to make sure, because one way you can absolutely ensure that you're going to get visited by Meshulach every single night, is to give generously to the one. And then word gets out, and then the next day you get two, and the next day you get four. That is how it works. So what does the city of Sodom do? They ban charity. They ban the sharing of wealth. They say, if we've got wealth, we're going to keep it here. So no hospitality, no charity, no sharing. And they take it to the extreme, where rather than encouraging a culture, they actually make that into law, and it now becomes statutory, that it is prohibited to host guests, that it is prohibited to give charity to guests, because we're out to beggars, because that's only going to bring more poor people around. So we don't want people coming around and wanting to leech off the wealth of the Sodom area. And there we have Lot, who is lured by the wealth, and he's got a green card. He's got a Sodom wife called Iris, and that gives him the right to go and live there, because they didn't say that you couldn't bring your spouse with. That's some countries do that now. They say they're marriages of convenience. I don't know if Lot's was a marriage of convenience, or they got married not for the money. But the fact remains, Lot, when Avram and Lot make the decision that they're going to part ways and they're going to live together, and Lot has a look, and he sees there is stone, that very fertile Jordan Valley in the south of Israel, where he can be rich, and he's able to live there. And he settles there, and he's there with his wife Lot. And of course, there's conflict because he's trying to bring the culture that he brought from Avram's house, that of hospitality, of kindness, of an open home. She, on the other hand, is a local, and hence the blow up about pass the salt to the visitors on the day, when it was really the end. For Sodom, because in fact those visitors are two angels who have come to fulfill their respective missions. They're coming from the home of Abraham, but as the Pasha opens, there were three angels, but one has done his mission. There were three angels that came to visit Abraham. The one was there to tell them about the imminent birth of Yitzchak. The second one was there as Malach Raphael for healing, to make Avraham better after the bris he just had, and the third angel was there to slipping my mind, but their omissions. Point is, when they move on to, we'll come back to it in a sec, when they move on to Sodom, only two angels are going on, because the two angels have got the mission of destroying Sodom and saving Lot's family, respectively. And the third angel has done his job and is done. And so they've come. So it's the end. It's the end of the line, because Hashem's made that decision. Culture such as that of Sodom cannot continue to exist. That entire civilization, so to speak, is going to come to an end because of the values they represent. As I said, a capitalism gone completely awry. This is how the impending destruction of Sodom is described in the parasha. This is where Hashem says he's going to share with Abraham Avinu, who is his faithful servant, what he intends to do. And Hashem says, the cry of Sodom and Amorah is huge, and the sin is very grievous. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to take care of them. And he says, I want to see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which has come to me. And if not, I will know. So the cry of it, that's the cry of the city for the evil that's being performed. But the commentaries say this is the feminine kata, her. A city in Hebrew is ir, and that is masculine. Kata is feminine. Whose scream, whose cry are we talking about? And it turns out that, and it is brought down in the Medrash, there was a girl who noticed that there was a poor man in Sodom. A poor man in Sodom is a very poor man because there is, no one's going to help him. It's against the law. And this young lady decides that she's going to help this man. So she had a scheme where she would go to the well and she would hide food in the jug of water that she was carrying, the empty jug. And on the way to the well, she would kind of, surreptitiously throw some bread out to feed the man. The people of Sodom realized this man just wasn't dying. He was poor, but clearly if he was surviving, then somebody was breaking the law by helping him live. And eventually they caught this girl, and she was put to death in a very cruel way, which the Talmud in Sanhedrin tells us that she was covered in honey and allowed to be devoured by bees. So that's, and it's the cry of her refers to the cry of that particular girl. So that's the final cry that really got to Hashem and made him decide that this entire culture had to be totally obliterated. And how was Sodom destroyed? So Sodom was destroyed by fire, by sulfur, and salt. It doesn't mention salt explicitly in the parasha, but at the end of Dvarim, Hashem makes reference to the Ma'apechat Sodom v'Amorah, and it talks about Gofrit v'Melach. Sulfur and salt is what became of that entire region. So what was most fertile, good land where there was agriculture, where they were raising animals, suddenly turned into an absolute arid desert. And I mean, the only resource that exists in that part of the country is actually the mining of salt. Of course, Israelis are very ingenious, and they've also discovered how to use the Dead Sea minerals for the advantage of beauty products and so forth. And most notable and famous is the Ahava range that we're familiar with. But it's not the wealth that was the initial wealth that was there before the destruction of Sodom and Amorah. So let's talk about salt, and let's try to understand why the destruction had to be via salt. And I'm going to move to an anecdote which is brought down in the Talmud, and it's an actual Jerusalemite idiom that involves salt, and that'll give us a bit of an understanding of the role of salt, of the Lot's wife being punished to turn to a pillar of salt because she had refused to pass the salt seems kind of very extreme. There's got to be a deeper message to that story. So let's go across to the Talmud. It's in Ketubot, if I'm not mistaken, and the Gemara says the following, that it shares a story, a sad story. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who is riding a donkey, he's leaving Jerusalem, and his students are walking with him, he's teaching them, and then they see a woman who's gathering barley from the dung of animals, and that's all she could eat. And she wasn't even dressed properly. She had to cover herself in her hair because she was so embarrassed to see him. And she's standing there before him, and he doesn't recognize her. But she actually happens to be the daughter of one of the wealthiest men of Jerusalem, a man called Nakdimon ben Gurion. And she says, please help me, feed me, sustain me. He says to her, but you're the daughter of Nakdimon ben Gurion. He was a wealthy millionaire. Where's all the money gone? And she says to him, there is such a proverb in Jerusalem, and this is the proverb she quotes: salt for money is lacking. Okay, salt for money is lacking. The way she meant it, the way she understood the proverb is that you use salt to preserve. We now have refrigeration, deep freezing, but in order to make food last longer, salt was substance which was used, which was enabled foodstuff not to perish. So the proverb, the Jerusalem proverb, says salt for money is lacking, meaning there's no such thing as salt for money. Maybe that's how she understood the poem, but let's have a look at how Rashi understands this proverb. Sorry, I couldn't find it in English anyway. Melech lamon chaser, Rashi says, if you want to salt your money, if you want to salt your money, you want to preserve your money, meaning you want to make sure that your money is going to remain with you. Then you must diminish it. By charity all the time. And it's diminishing, that will keep it, that'll preserve it. So rather than the way Nakdimon's daughter understood the proverb, salt for money is lacking, meaning there's nothing you can do to preserve money. There's no such thing, like you can put salt on meat and it'll last longer, but there's no equivalent with money. Rashi says, actually, the deeper meaning of the poem is the opposite. There is salt for money, and that is diminish it through tzedakah. And when you're going to give charity, you're going to give tzedakah, that's going to preserve your money. In other words, the best way to preserve your money is actually to make it less by giving it away. And that use of the mitzvah of tzedakah is there to preserve money. Think of it in this way. Hashem has invested money with you. It's not really yours. Some of it is for you. But some of it, you are required to share with the poor. You're required to give tzedakah. So Hashem entrusts you with money, hoping that you will follow the rules. And the rules are that you're supposed to give 10% of your income, ideally 20% of your income has got to be given to charity. And so Hashem entrusts you and says, I think I can trust you. I invest my money with you. Some of it belongs to the poor, and I rely on you to give it to them to fulfill the mitzvah of tzedakah on my behalf. You do it, Hashem gives you more to invest with you because you're using it correctly. You don't fulfill the mitzvah of tzedakah, Hashem says, well, it seems like you're not really a good place for me to place my investments. I'm going to have to find somebody else. So the tzedakah that I give is a salt to preserve my money. A way to increase wealth is to give more tzedakah. And that is not all your money goes to charity. So tzedakah is like salt. A little bit of charity preserves a lot of money. Just like, you don't really want to take a whole salt bottle and put that into your food because you say, well, if a little bit of salt improves the taste of the food, then a lot of salt must make it even better. No, it's going to be inedible. So likewise, you're not required to give all of your wealth away to charity, but you are required to give a proportion of it, as I said, 10% or 20% or whatever it may be. And that tzedakah that you give is helping to preserve the money. It's the salt of your money. Tzedakah, melach, amon chaser. Salting money is done via diminishing it a little bit. This is what's actually important, to give tzedakah frequently. Just like you don't at the beginning of the week, take a full cup of salt and ingest it and say, well, that's going to make all my food for the week taste good. You put a little bit of salt in each of the foods that you eat in order to make them all be enhanced by that which the salt can do for it. So it's important, besides the large sums of money that we give in tzedakah, because we work out what we've earned, what our profits are if we're in business, and we give a proportion of that to charity, and that obviously is done in the substantial amounts, but at the same time, you also make sure we give tzedakah frequently, even in small amounts. So you have a pushka in the house, you have a pushka in the kitchen, you have one in the dining room. As you walk past, you take out a coin or a 10 rand note, and you put those small amounts into the pushka. You give tzedakah before davening in the morning, again for mincha, you do before you light candles on a Friday night, and all of that enhances, salts our money by preserving it and, in fact, increasing it. And strangely, tzedakah is one way we are allowed to test God. We normally are told you're not supposed to go and test Hashem. He promises you brachos, but you can't put him to the test. But in the prophet, Hashem says, he says, test me with this. You give charity and you will see. I will open up, he says, the skylights of heaven, the Rabot HaShamayim, and I will bestow bracha upon you. Harikoti lachem bracha ad bidai. Unending blessing will rain down upon you. So that's assault. And of course, Sodom has got a problem with salt. Sodom's got a real problem with salt. But the salt is not, it wasn't just to pass the salt shaker to the guests. It was far deeper than that. The salt represents a tzedakah which is antithetical to Sodom, who have made statutes that prevent people from giving a tzedakah. That is their mentality. And there are Lot and his wife, and they've settled there. And Lot's wife, to a great extent, and Lot himself, to a certain extent, are being swept up by this mentality of Sodom, and they're now being saved from Sodom. But it seems they're not even being saved in their own merit. It's protection. They're being saved because it's Abraham's nephew and his wife, and Hashem saves them in the merit of Abraham, because they have become Sodomite enough that they don't necessarily deserve this salvation. And there they are. Angels have come to visit, to announce to Lot and his family that the destruction of this evil, perverse culture called Sodom, capitalism gone totally awry, has come, and that these cities are going to be destroyed, with a life vest, what they call a life buoy, being sent out being thrown to Lot and his family to say, hold on, come with us, and we're going to save you and take you out of here. And it seems it's not going to be so easy. It's not going to be so easy because here we go. The people say to them, who do you have here? Son-in-law, sons, daughters, whatever you have in the city, come out, because we're going to destroy this place, because as we saw earlier, the cry of them has grown so great, and Hashem has sent us here to destroy it. So let's go out. And then a couple of verses later, he says, okay, time to go. And we see that Lot lingers. The Hebrew word there is vayitmama. And literally, I've got to pull him out. Him, his wife, his daughters, in Hashem's kindness to them, they're taken out to the outside of the city. That word, he lingered. While he lingered, it's got this very interesting trope that occurs only 3-4 times in the entire Torah. It's called a shalshelet. And it's kind of a zigzag line going up. And when sung with trop, this word actually, it extends the length of the word. So while he lingered, vayit mama, so the word really, becomes a very long word. While he lingered, it was hard for Lot to leave the city. It was hard for him to leave the culture of Sodom. He'd gotten very accustomed. They'd made him a judge over them. So clearly, he was becoming one of them. And it seems that rather than him bringing the Abrahamic influence upon them, the reverse was happening. And he was being influenced. And now he's looking back at the city of Sodom and he's battling. And the angels say, we out, run away, don't look back. Don't look back. It's powerful. I mean, the ostensible reason Rashi brings down from the Medrash is that you're part of them and you're being saved through the merit of Avraham Avinu. So you really shouldn't be witnessing. Excuse me. You shouldn't be witnessing they do while you escape. Don't turn around. You don't deserve to be watching what's going on. But it's don't look back. You're going away from there. Forget about this culture. Move on. They're evil. They're perverse. There's one person that is struggling with that. Of course, that's Lot's wife. She's looking back longingly. She's saying, what's happening to the home where I grew up, to the culture I was taught my entire life? What is going on here? Why am I being made to? So as she turns around and looks back longingly, unfortunately, the angels realize that you can take by force Lot and his wife out of Sodom, but you cannot take Sodom out of Lot's wife. And so she remains a perpetual monument to greed, to capitalism gone wrong, and to those who have difficulty cutting away with the past, whether this is actually Lot's wife or just a salty protrusion. Nobody's sure, but there is a statement in the Talmud that when you come across the statue of Lot's wife, the pillar of Lot, there's a bracha you must make. There's a bracha you make when you get to the Jordan River crossings where Joshua came across when they came into the Holy Land. The Talmud lists a whole bunch of brachas that are made on certain occasions. The only one that has a road sign pointing to a lookout is actually Lot's wife. Somehow that lesson of don't look back, of moving on and not getting caught up in the paradigms of the past that we're trying to abandon is an important one. And it's one that Lot's wife failed, and one that by looking at her statue, whether you happen to be in the south of Israel or whether it's just on a picture here, is one that reminds us of the importance of salt, why salt was chosen to destroy that city, which now became a totally salty area. Midah keneged midah, measure for measure. Thank you very much.